Welcome back to part 5 with me, Jeff Ollerhead, and my guest Jason Walker. He's just joined the Kingston Regiment. He's been in Berlin. The story was beforehand, check it out. But this is when he went to Northern Ireland. So, Jace, Northern Ireland, tell me a little bit about it.
Yeah, so we finished 2 years in Berlin, and you've got to remember we had a great time, and all of a sudden it's serious. We go to a 2-year posting in Northern Ireland. But at this stage, I'd given my 12 months notice in, leaving the army, so I've got 12 months left to do, which is Northern Ireland. So the regiment went for 2 years, I'm there for 12 months.
What made you want to leave, or what was in your mind?
I was actually thinking fire brigade, come out into city streets and join the fire brigade. So,
was you caught at the time? Do you think that?
No.
Not caught. No. Just okay. So we get to Northern Ireland. We tell the viewers.
Well, straight away we go to Shackleton Barracks. We're based in Ballykelly, and all of a sudden it changes. It's all work, no play. We're now into it. Serious stuff. I remember literally getting flown in, dropping my bag, changed, straight to Omagh. We're in Omagh for a month, patrolling.
Just to tell the viewers, we were acting as a quick reaction force for the whole province. We were close to Londonderry, and if it serves me correctly, we covered every province, counties of the northern counties.
I mean, I certainly remember, we're in Omagh, we're there for a month, we come back to camp, we're there literally a couple of days, boom, we're flown somewhere else. Yeah. You were literally here, there, everywhere, all over Northern Ireland.
And at the time, the ongoing war was in full flow, because I remember, and you probably remember, there was always daily incidents, fatalities, bombings, shootings, kidnapping, and horrendous. But Jace, I want to move you quickly on because I don't know if you want to talk about it, but you were actually in the bombing of Victor 2, which happened on a checkpoint.
Yeah. We got there, I think, in January. This was October, so we've been there 9 months. We've been all over, patrolling here, there, everywhere. And then what would happen is you would take turns, regiments, would take turns on checkpoints, and you think, well, what's this checkpoint? You've got Northern Ireland, Southern Ireland, the roads that join the two checkpoints are on them, and they're permanently manned, as in 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
So you're stopping all vehicles.
You cross the border, basically, from the north to the south. So there's many checkpoints going along that border. The Londonderry area, which we were at the time, you had like the 3 main checkpoints, Victor 1, Victor 2, and Victor 3. So I was in the anti-tank platoon, we get divided into 2. Half of us go to Victor 2, I think the other half went to Victor 3, if I'm correct.
Okay.
So that's 12 of us.
So
Victor 2.
Victor 2, describe the checkpoints. How big is it, do you think?
The checkpoint itself had a small accommodation block. You were there for 3 weeks before someone would come and relieve you. A little accommodation block, you'd have a sanger at one end of the road, a sanger at the other end of the road where you keep watches, security, if you like, of the vehicles on the road coming in and out. And then you had a little operations room where all the vehicle regs, etc., would be typed up, who's coming and going. You had a little search bay, you pull cars in, they get searched. So it was like you were there for 3 weeks. And I remember the routine when we arrived, it was like 9 hours on, 9 hours off. And I'm thinking, 3 weeks, 9 hours on, like,
So it played a lot on your
sleep deprivation. Slog routine.
So in the 9 hours off, you'd have to clean your weapons, have food,
get some sleep, in that little accommodation block. Now we were lucky in the sense that that was a new build. They'd only just not long finished that. They'd made it mortar-proof and bomb-proof. If we'd have been in the old building, then I certainly wouldn't be sat here today.
Okay, so let's go through the 2 incidents that happened on, was it the 23rd?
24th of October 1990.
Okay, so you were manning the checkpoint, and was it on your 9 hours off?
Basically, I'd come off at midnight, so then I'm off from midnight till 9 in the morning. The other half to take over. So they're out in the Sangers, they're in the search bay.
So what happens? I mean, obviously you didn't know at the time, but when the news come, it was a proxy bomb. Can you explain what a proxy bomb is?
It's basically a tactic of the IRA where they'd fill a car or a van with an explosive device. They'd get someone to drive it in, normally say holding their family hostage. If you don't do that, we're going to kill your family. You drive it in, once it's in position, it then detonate it.
How did you detonate it?
Normally by remote,
Yeah, a remote control device, yeah.
But on our incidents, basically what happened is, it was the first incident where they actually chained the person. Patsy Gillespie, his name was.
Patsy.
He actually worked in one of Fort George as a cook, so he was working in an army camp.
So it was a civilian worker?
Civilian worker in an army camp. So he goes home, his wife and kids are tied up, 11 IRA in his house. Basically, if you don't drive that vehicle outside to this checkpoint, then I'm going to kill your family. So the man's got no choice. He gets in the seat and you chain him in the seat. Whereas normally, you wouldn't do that. You get away, do a runner, the van goes up. On this instance, they chained him. They called it a human bomb, basically.
So he knew he was destined to death, but he saved his family.
Mm. So on the night in question, it was around about 4 o'clock in the morning, early hours. So obviously I'm asleep. So we drove the vehicle in. There was, as I say, 11 terrorists in the vicinity watching the vehicle go in. We had hills either side of us, so there'd be
valley,
there, watching it come in. And as they drove it in, they detonated it. So it was a £1,000 Semtex bomb. As I say, if we were in the old building, we wouldn't be here today. But believe it or not, the building, it reminded me of an eggshell. The outside shell stays up, but the inside collapses. So lucky for me, I was on bunk beds. The top bunk bed was empty. I was in the middle, and Stevie Bridge was on the bottom. And the whole place collapsed, and all fell onto the top bunk, but the weight, domino effect, dum, 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 and it all collapsed.
So you crushed them.
We ended up on the floor, me and Steve, with all this rubble. I always remember the smell of death and explosives. The smell that will never leave me. And something you don't think about is all the electric goes, it's pitch black. The dust, the smell.
There's no light.
There's no lighting. It's pitch black. So at this point, we don't know what's going on outside. We're just dealing with what's happening inside.
It needs to be awoken. It takes about 5 minutes of function. And obviously being on the routine, did you exactly know what happened, or what do you get what I mean? You got flew out your belt, crushed under a bed, and
so
first
we're in Northern Ireland. Instantly, there's a bomb's gone off. It was chaos. Dave Weaver, God love him, he was my corporal at the time, so he's in the room and he's messing about on the floor, trying to get a radio contact report out. Everything got blown everywhere.
So you couldn't see nothing?
He couldn't see nothing, he's feeling around, where's the radio, everything's all over the place. He ends up finding it, getting it on, sending a report, and his back's gone, his leg, he's injured. There's screaming, there's shouting, it's chaotic. And what people don't know is all of a sudden we were lucky in the fact that they had 2 big steel doors either side and they'd blown in and jammed. So it's like we couldn't get out, but no one could get in.
Okay.
And at that time, we heard voices outside. And all of a sudden you're thinking, right, we've blown the place up, now they're coming in to finish us off. And the problem was at the time, which I believe it's now been rectified, is our weapons were on a rack outside the door. Whereas after that incident, they brought the racks inside. So we had no weapons, but lucky enough, our officer, for some reason, had brought his weapon in, and he had a pistol as well. So we gave him...
Who was the officer?
Lieutenant White. He was pretty new to the regiment, young. So we gave
Did you all just snap into like sort of like a robotic mode thing?
Well, he gave me his weapon, so I've cocked it. He's got his pistol. At this point, we're expecting them to come through the door and finish us off. You know, there was this confusion of who was it? Was it our lads? Was it them? To this day, I still don't know.
What do you think though instinctively?
I wouldn't know. All I know is at the time it was a frightening experience,
Because
and I was waiting for them to come through. But all of a sudden, all hell breaks loose outside. GP going, firing, all the rest of it. And I'm going, right, something's going on outside. We couldn't get out, and then it went quiet. And then next thing, backup starts arriving, you know, from Fort George. So they all start arriving on the scene. Things calm down to a degree, where eventually people start getting in the building. The medics come in. At this point, Dave's on the floor in a bad way.
What's wrong? What do you think? He's like broke his back or?
Yeah. He was on a bed where the window was open half an inch. So the blast comes through and it's you know, giving some major problems.
In the bleeding and stuff, yeah.
But he did what he had to do, and then he kind of like collapsed.
Did he get a medal for that, Dave? You know, because
he got a mention in dispatches and things like that.
To act like that, you know, people don't realise. I mean, it's no one can ever imagine being in a bomb blast and then trying to get on with your job, and especially being injured.
But we eventually, the medic come in. I always remember having a terrible sit, having a bit of a joke where Dave's an ex-boxer and all his teeth are, you know, and he's got false teeth, and I'm pulling these false teeth out of his mouth, and you know, in the middle of all this confusion, and we end up getting him on I think it was a door frame, used it as like a stretcher. We end up getting him out, and then it's out. When I came out, I could see the absolute devastation. There was a massive crater. Instantly,
what size? Like a football pitch or?
No, it wasn't that big. You know, I just remember seeing this big crater where the search bay was, because basically the van had come into the search bay. That's where it detonated, and it was a massive crater. And there's all hell going on outside. Medics, ambulances arriving. And it turned out that 5 of our lads had been killed outside. Also, obviously the civilian driver had been killed, so it was 6 in total. And these were blown to bits, basically. You know, you've got body parts all over the place. They were that close, obviously, to the bomb. And then I remember the ambulance coming, and the officer at the time in charge coming up and saying, right, you two in the ambulance, we put Dave in, and then I get in. I remember the door swinging off it, and it hit me right in the head. Again, seeing stars for how many times I was.
So off the vehicle or one of the
inside
the inside
accommodation.
Did he have to cut in? Did he to get into?
I don't. There was that much chaos going on.
Probably all melted on.
I don't know how he eventually got in, but he did. Got us out. We're now in the back of the ambulance, and I've still got this rifle. I remember our officer turning around and saying, right, give us your weapon. We're going off to hospital, and I'm thinking, well, have we got an escort? Saying, oh, well, I'll sort out that, because it was a known in them days that the IRA would have an incident. The ambulances would turn up, take these injured soldiers away, and a mile down the road, you'd be pulled over by armed terrorists, open the back and kill whoever's in the back. You know, that was
secondary,
that was one of their tactics.
Ambush again, you know.
So I'm got this in my head thinking, well, have we got it? He said, yeah, you've got an escort, that Land Rover will follow you. I said, right, okay. So I handed him my weapon. Dave's screaming in the back of the ambulance, and away we go. And I looked, and the Land Rover isn't following us. And Dave's, have we got an escort? I said, yeah, Dave, we've got an escort. Just
lying to him to keep
him calm. And away we go. And I'm looking, no escort. I'm thinking, you know, I'm on pins even more now. Get a mile down the road, all of a sudden, the ambulance pulls in. And I'm like, oh. And they say, near-death experiences, you go all calm and you accept your fate and what about to happen. Yeah. And I must, that point in the back of the ambulance, I actually sat there and remember this complete calmness coming over me and thinking, that's it, you know, I'm going to get slotted here. Any second now, them doors are going to open and bum bum. I remember the complete calmness. I accepted it and I was like, this is how it feels.
You had no weapons to defend yourself.
No weapons to defend myself. The escort didn't follow us. And then I just accepted my fate. Nice and calm. Waited. It seemed like minutes, but it was only seconds. All of a sudden the ambulance, away we go. And when I looked, what it was another ambulance coming the other way, and they'd stopped, winded down, and they were giving a brief to the ambulance going to the incident. As we went, I went, that sigh of
relief.
But at one point I'd accepted the fate and the calmness, and you know, and off we go to hospital. Dave gets taken down, and I get X-rayed, this, that, and the other. So I was just in shock, really, bit of a few bruises, all the rest of it, but nothing major.
The middle bunk saved you.
Yeah.
So
top bunk.
Sorry, the top bunk saved you, or the middle bunk. Just to go back to would you like to name the lads who lost their lives?
Yeah, I mean, the oldest was Bugsy. I think he was 30. He was like a corporal at the time. Bugsy Burrows.
Bugsy Burrows.
Yeah. The other lads, unfortunately, you know, very young, 20, 21 years old. You've got Vincent Scott.
Vinny Scott.
Dave Sweeney. Paul Worrell. And Steve Beecham, yeah.
I passed out with Stevie Beecham.
Yeah.
There's a story about Stevie. I was lucky, fortunate to see his son Jordan, because Stevie was meant to go home because his wife to be was expecting her baby. Because he wasn't married, she had the baby. I think he was 2 or 3 days old, and he should have went home really, because any other father got the privilege.
Well, I remember him coming with a photograph just before we went to checkpoint, I think it was, showing me a photograph
of his son,
his newborn
Jordan.
But you know, it's how it went is we ended up in hospital. We go back to camp. What I didn't realise when I went into my room, we were like in 6-man bays. So I'm in the corner. Vinny Scott lived opposite me. Yeah. Steve Beecham was in this bed. Sweep was in that bed to start with, but he eventually went more to platoon. And the M bed was empty. So I walked in the block that first night back in our camp. And I was surrounded, there was no one in the block, it was just me. And I was like, you know, all of them had been killed in my room. I remember it was a few days, and my sergeant walked in, and he kind of like looked, and he realised that I'd been on my own, that everyone in my room had been killed, and then didn't say anything, and then he walked out, and then half an hour later, Beanie McGivern comes running in with his gear.
Beanie McGivern, a PTI.
I've been told to come and, you know, get in one of these bird spaces. I've been on my own. Everyone around me was gone, you know.
So what a guy Beanie McGivern is. Yeah. Beanie turned out to be a commando, didn't he?
Yeah.
I seen him around Smoky Mo's on the karaoke. Jace, I thank you very much for telling a story and so humbled to say that I'm honoured that you went through it, and rest in peace, all the Kingos who never made it home. Stand by for part 6. Thank you very much, Jeff Ollerhead and Jason Walker.